Yep, as David said, my name is Louisa Corsi and I'm a business support partner at Zero Waste Scotland. And I'm going to take you through a range of some of the reusable packaging models that can be adopted by businesses. First of all, I just wanted to set the scene a bit on some of the wider measures on single-use packaging. The Scottish Government is putting in place a range of measures that aim to reduce our reliance on single-use disposable items. Measures under recent development include a recent consultation on extended producer responsibility for packaging, the introduction of market restrictions for specific items such as styrofoam food containers, single-use drink stirrers and plastic straws. Some of the measures that are already in place or approved include a ban on plastic microbeads and plastic stemmed cotton buds. We also saw the increase in the single-use carrier bag charge up to 10p earlier this year. Legislation has also been laid on the establishment of a deposit return scheme for drinks containers across Scotland. And then at a UK level, a new plastic packaging tax will take effect from the 1st of April next year. And this will apply to any packaging that contains less than 30% recycled plastic and will be charged at £200 a tonne. But away from legislation, many companies are going beyond this and pursuing more circular solutions to packaging. Zero Waste Scotland recently released its material flow accounts report ahead of COP26, which revealed that Scots on average consume around 18.4 tonnes of materials every year, yet it's only 8 tonnes that's thought to be a sustainable level. So we've got a long way to go to reduce our material consumption. But reusable circular packaging is clearly one solution. You're retaining a product's inherent value for as long as possible by continuing to use it again and again for its primary intended purpose. So covering some of the benefits of reusable packaging. So this is a slide produced by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Starting at the top left corner there, cutting costs, so through reduced packaging and reduced transportation costs. So the example of the concentrated pod there in comparison to the 6 bottles, there's a big difference in packaging and of course the volume of that packaging and the transportation requirements of that, so significant cost savings. You can also build brand loyalty through deposit and reward schemes. So by getting a customer to come back to you and reclaim their deposit means extra footfall. Reusable packaging is also often offered under subscriptions, therefore retaining your customer for a longer period. There is an improved user experience via the superior design of reusable containers. So the packaging is built to last, so it can be a lot sturdier. The example there of the ice cream tub, it's made of aluminium. So in comparison to a typical sort of cardboard ice cream tub, you know, it kind of collapses in on itself. It's not designed to last. So in this case, it's a lot sturdier. It retains its shape and it keeps the ice cream cooler for longer as well. Also, you can gather intelligence via the incorporation of smart systems such as RFID tags. And this allows you to understand more about your customer and their user journey. And we'll hear more from Reath on that later. You can optimize operations, so through shared design, for example, a network of reusable brewery casks. They're standardized, so any brewery can use them, so you benefit from economies of scale. And then finally, customization is often possible. So a customer can choose the exact quantity that they want to buy in zero waste shops, but there are other opportunities, customization opportunities to mix up flavors or fragrances. So I think a number of these benefits aren't immediately obvious when considering reusable packaging options. So hopefully this just helps illustrate some of the innovations available through circular solutions and the added benefits that they can provide to your business. So we've identified 4 different reuse models. These are some of the key reuse models adopted. And I'm going to go through each of these in turn and provide an example. And I think these go to illustrate that there's no one way to roll out a reusable packaging model. You need to pick something that suits your needs and your customer needs. So firstly, looking at refill at home. So this is where a user buys a container, they use the product, and then they get refills delivered themselves at home. So the benefit of this model is that it can often be offered under a subscription service. Though something to be aware of is that ensuring that the refill packaging is sustainable itself, so either recyclable or compostable or reusable. An example of this model is Rockrose Gin. I'm sure some of you have sampled their wares. So they offer gin in a ceramic bottle typically, but they have developed a refill pouch so that customers can refill their bottle at home. Then that pouch can be returned via post. So it's already got a free post stamp on the back of it. So it can be returned directly in the post with no need for additional packaging, and it's sent to a recycling partner. It's worth highlighting, recognize this is not 100% circular. It's still creating the refill pouch itself, but that pouch is 65 grams rather than 700 grams for the ceramic bottle. So a big difference in terms of the materials and that embodied carbon and transportation of that bottle. So it's certainly a really good step in the right direction. Just I'm going to give a top tip for each of these. And in this case, it's about providing an incentive to engage your customers and to ensure that they're returning that packaging. You really need to provide incentives. In this instance, they're charging £30 for the refill pouch rather than £34 for the standard bottle. And they've also set up a refill rewards club, which is a gin subscription service. And I thought it was also worth highlighting Harris Gin, who have launched a very similar model. Instead of a pouch, they use Harris Gin bottle. That aluminium bottle can go in the curbside recycling. So second model is refill on the go. So this is where a user has a container, they use the product, and then they refill that out and about. So in this instance, the users bring their own container from home. So the benefit is that there's no need for the business to worry about incentive mechanisms or the washing and refilling of the containers in-house, because it's the responsibility of the customer to do that. Of course, that does offer challenges. It may appeal to certain customer segment, as not everyone would be willing to go to the effort of bringing their own containers. But obviously, we can see with the popularity of zero waste shops that, you know, certainly there is a large segment that is willing to do that. So an example is the Milk Station Company. They are a vending machine company, and they've installed over 200 machines across the UK. They're often installed in farm shops or in the immediate vicinity of a dairy farm, but also in a number of convenience stores across Scotland. The picture on the right-hand side is from Morton's farm in Ayrshire. So they have this in their farm shop, and they sell glass bottles in the farm shop alongside this. The customer, they can be brought back and used time and time again. So a top tip under this one, using embossed or printed bottles. So it's about considering the ease of labelling. Spoken to a number of businesses in the past who have launched reusable container schemes, and they've initially had paper adhesive labels, which took a huge amount of time and effort to remove and reapply each time the packaging was reused. So by using embossed or printed bottles or containers, you remove this complication. And although it may cost more upfront, it's likely to save time and money in the long run. So it's worth considering if it would fit your model. So a third model is return from home. So this is essentially a subscription service. So business delivers the product to the customer's door. They use the product, and then the business picks up the empty packaging and cleans and refills it, ready to be used again. So the benefit of this is it's super easy for the customer. They don't even need to leave the house. So it's sort of the responsibility of the company to arrange all the logistics, cleaning, the refilling of the containers. Of course, the cost of that provision is ultimately borne by the customer. So an example here is Loop. So Loop offers an online shopping and delivery facility. So this has actually been developed and launched by TerraCycle, who you might recognise. They offer recycling schemes for Walker's crisp packets and pens and toothpaste tubes, lots of hard to recycle items. But they've launched this and they are running this in conjunction with a number of brand owners such as Nestle, PepsiCo, Unilever, a number of other independent brands, all delivered in superior reusable packaging. So the products are delivered to a person's home and collected when finished to be cleaned and refilled for further use. And Loop have recently entered into a partnership with Tesco in the UK, so you may have seen that in the media. So top tip here is making it easy for customers. So clearly in this example, it's very easy. But if something is complicated, it's going to take a huge amount of extra effort, or customers don't quite understand how to engage with it. You're going to struggle to have long-running success. So making it easy for customers is key. And then our final model is return on the go. So it's where the user purchases a product in reusable packaging, they use it, and then they return that packaging either to where they bought it from or to a dedicated drop-off point. And then the business cleans and refills that ready for reuse. So the benefit here is that the customer themselves are dropping that back off to you, so you don't need to worry about the logistics. But of course, by doing that, you need to provide that incentive to ensure that they do return that packaging and that it's not lost in the system. An example is Yo-Yo Cup. They are an Edinburgh-based startup, and they're just about to launch a pilot in Portobello, I think, and they are offering a cup as a service model. So a customer will go into a participating store, they will buy a hot drink in a reusable cup, they pay a small deposit, and then when they return that to the shop, they get their deposit back. I think top tip for this one is to know your carbon claims. So in this particular instance, we supported Yo-Yo Cup to help here and reassure themselves that the model that they're proposing, the materials that they're using, are far more beneficial than the single-use alternative. So that carbon impact assessment confirmed that the cup only needed to be reused 8 times to account for the increased heavy weighting of the cup, but also the logistics and the washing of the cup. And this cup is actually designed to be reused as many as 500 times. So clearly, if the carbon benefits are being felt after 8 times, it's obviously got significant savings when compared to the single-use alternative. And this is really important to check these claims. I saw a recent report that said 43% of senior employees in the UK think their company has been guilty of greenwashing. So it's key to ensure that you're confident in the claims that you're making and that you can back them up. I thought it was worth just highlighting a report that might be of interest. This is a reusable versus single packaging report developed by Reloop and Zero Waste Europe. And they compare a number of studies and give some data on reusable packaging carbon savings. So worth checking that out if you're interested. So those are the 4 models. I also wanted to recap over the range of incentive schemes that can be chosen. Obviously, as I highlighted earlier, incentive schemes are key to engage your customers in this and to ensure that they return their reusable packaging. The first one there is financial deposit, so applying a small additional fee on top of the cost of the product, which will be reimbursed upon return. So it could be 50p, it could be £1. It's a case of setting it low enough so that it's not seen as a barrier to to customers engaging, but high enough to incentivize them to actually return it. Can also consider financial penalties. So rather than charging a deposit up front, you apply a penalty if they don't return the container within a set amount of time, so a fortnight, for example. And this is something that Club Zero, a returnable takeaway packaging company, has carried out via their app that they operate on. Third option, some sort of reward scheme, so a loyalty card or app. So, you know, if they return a container, they get a stamp each time. And on the 5th or 10th stamp, they get a free coffee or whatever is relevant for your business. And then similarly, money off next purchase, so applying a discount for a future purchase. And of course, the benefit of that is that you're then encouraging the customers to spend more in your store. Number 5 and 6 we kind of already covered with Rock Rose, so selling refills cheaper than the standard product, and also the option of subscription service to have that continued sort of monthly or bi-monthly customer engagement. And this would be suitable for return or refill from home models. And then the final one just dropped into the bottom there is the bring your own option. So this doesn't really need any incentive, like financial incentive schemes, because this is where the customer is bringing their own container. So no need for that. So hopefully that's a useful recap of different incentive schemes. Also wanted to very, very briefly touch on food safety. There isn't any dedicated guidance on reusable packaging in food businesses from Food Standard Scotland. However, general food hygiene regulations obviously apply as they would in any business. This just highlights some of the key regulations that were pointed out by Food Standard Scotland, some of the key chapters, but really the main takeaway is that businesses are required to implement their own safety procedure measures in order to identify and control risks to food hygiene. So if you're a food business, you'll already have a food safety management system in place, and this will be checked by local environmental health officers. Therefore, it's just a case of amending these to take account of any reusable packaging introduced. And then following on from that, I think it's worth bringing up COVID-19. I suspect a number of people saw sort of turnaround from some businesses who were no longer comfortable offering reusable container options and decided to go back to single use due to concerns of transmission. But in response to that, there was a statement released by 125 health experts from 18 countries around the world. And they stated that based on the best available science and guidance from public health professionals, it is clear that reusable systems can be used safely by employing basic hygiene. And this was backed up by a number of reports and a number of studies. There's another one mentioned there from Zero Waste Europe. And I've also included at the bottom some guidance that was produced by City to Sea, all about sort of reusables during COVID and some sort of best practice options. So please check that out if you're interested. So just summarising with some top tips. As I said earlier, choose a model that suits you and your customers. Carry out some research, speak to operational staff, speak to your customers and understand what would work for them, and then trial it. You know, there's no need to jump in feet first. Trial it with a particular customer or with a particular product, see how it goes and embed any lessons learned into the final rollout. Create incentives, we've already covered this. This is absolutely key to get that engagement. Of course, making it easy for customers as well. If it's complicated, you just won't get that long-term engagement and success. And then finally, shout about it. This is a great news story. In order to engage your customers, ensure that you're reminding them to return their containers through newsletters. Tell them about the carbon savings, the waste savings, and the success of the project. Just keep it going. And then finally, just finishing on Zero Waste Scotland support. So as David's already mentioned, we have our Circular Economy Business Support Service. So this is a framework of consultants who provide free support to businesses interested in pursuing circular economy business models. So if you've got an innovative idea, you're lacking a bit of expertise or knowledge in order to get that to a stage of commercial readiness, you may be able to benefit from this consultancy support. So if you're interested, please get in contact with me. We also have our Circular Economy Investment Fund. This is a grant award system from £50,000 up to £1 million. Again, it's available to SMEs who are pursuing circular products or services. It is coming to the end of the programme, but for further information, take a look at our website there or speak to me or a colleague directly. We've also recently relaunched our Scottish Circular Economy Business Network. This is a network of like-minded businesses all interested in pursuing circular economy business models. We send out regular updates to the network, so on relevant funding, resources, events, and also trying to promote the opportunity of partnership working and joining businesses up where mutually beneficial. So if you're interested in joining that, then please drop a quick email to that email address and we'll add you onto it. And then finally, also wanted to highlight Scottish Food and Drink Net Zero Challenge Fund. This was launched by Interface and Scotland Food and Drink and provides funding awards of up to £10,000 for businesses who partner with Scottish academia on projects contributing to sustainability and net zero goals. And I checked with them and reusable packaging would be considered under that. So this programme is a competitive call and closes on the 17th of December. So if you're looking for more information on that, please visit that website link below. So that was a very quick run through. There's an awful lot to cover under reusable packaging. I could have gone on and on, but hopefully that was a useful introduction. So if you do want to discuss any of that in more detail with me, please don't hesitate to get in contact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louisa. That's a really interesting and useful presentation. We're now just going to move on to Joe Shidley from Beauty Kitchen, who'll tell us about their business approach to circular economy. Are you there, Joe?
I am, yes. So I'll just share screen.
Excellent.
Thank you. I've just had to move for internet. I don't know what's happened, but hopefully you can see that.
Yep, I can see that okay.
If you can't see me, can you still see the slides?
Yeah,
that's great. Thanks very much. I just thought I'll turn the video off to get some more bandwidth. So hi everybody. Over the next 10 minutes, I just want to introduce our reusable packaging format. And I've been talking quite a lot in the last 12 to 18 months in the lead up to COP26 about how reuse, particularly within consumer products, whether that's in bricks and mortar retailers or from an e-commerce perspective, how we can utilise reusable packaging in circular business models and how we can scale that. If you just give me a second. So the problem, we've all seen images like this, and at the end of the day, I'm an analytical chemist by trade, and I've worked in the personal care and beauty industry for quite a long time. And plastic is a phenomenal material, but the problem with plastic is when it goes rogue. And because we have been working within a linear economy where you take resources, you make something, and then ultimately it becomes waste, it's when plastic goes rogue that the problem is, and it hasn't been designed with circularity in mind. Everybody knows that the planet is in crisis. You know, I'm based here right on the doorstep of COP26. I'm presenting at both the blue zone and the green zone with regards to reusable packaging systems over the next few days. And everyone knows that change is hard. Change is apparently expensive and not commercially viable. So to gain sustainable advantage, what we do is we make our products more good rather than less bad. So there's more recycled content, or the product is in a smaller packaging. And what we wanted to do with Beauty Kitchen as the demonstrator brand and our reusable packaging system was really to stop all those objections and lower those barriers to entry. We didn't want to create confusion because that basically is greenwashing and it slows down the rate of change. So what we've done is we have a three-sided network, or that's how we describe it. We bring retailers together, we bring brands together, which ultimately brings consumers together. And we've removed all of the barriers to entry to reusable packaging by having to set up everything from scratch, which has had its own challenges, but has really opened up a lot of opportunities. And what we want to do is make change within reusable packaging advantageous for all. So in 1950, there was 2 million tonnes of plastic created. In 2020, that's 380 million. That number is set to triple in the next, by 2030. We're also reusing less than ever before. And I know Louisa used this slide as well in terms of a circular economy as the solution. And what we need to do though is we need to engage with the linear economy. If you have a circular business model, in my eyes, there's no point in keeping that to yourself. And that's where you utilising Zero Waste Scotland or other associations within your industry to be able to bridge that gap and help other businesses and other people make that switch to a more circular way of doing things. The great news is there's huge opportunity. Consumers want more good products. They think that brands and retailers are the ones that should provide these products to them. But they're also worried about greenwashing. But the challenge here for us as businesses is, why are we not giving it to them if that's what they really want? We also know that they're prepared to switch brands, they're prepared to switch retailers, they're prepared to pay a little bit more for the value of it. And they expect us to provide those products. And everybody in this room is a customer at the end of the day of different brands. So what we do is we exist to democratise the safe and circular economy. We've created refill and pre-fill solutions that basically help everyone to access reusable packaging. So if I use Beauty Kitchen as an example, the reason why we started Beauty Kitchen was as a demonstrator brand. We wanted to show what is truly possible within fast-moving consumer goods. And that's why we set up Beauty Kitchen. So Beauty Kitchen has been in reusable packaging for a few years now. We are the global benchmark within sustainable beauty. We are available through our own e-commerce site, but we're also available through other retailers. But when it comes to beauty products, it's about having effectiveness. That has to be key, or people just won't buy the products again. And then we talk about naturalness. And the way that we do that is through third-party verification marks, because people want microplastic-free, vegan and cruelty-free beauty products. And then with sustainability, what we've done is we've utilised cradle-to-cradle principles, certification, and B Corp certification. We're the highest scoring B Corp within personal care in Europe, and we are the 4th highest in the world. So it is truly possible to be a commercial organisation and still look after the triple bottom line. So bringing together brands, consumers and retailers and having a demonstrator brand, it means that with Beauty Kitchen, we've gone through lots of the challenges that brands and retailers will be asking us about. You know, how do we collect the empty packaging? How do we make our brand recognisable if we're using standardised packaging for reusable packaging? We've gone through all of those questions with Beauty Kitchen. And we want everyone to join the reuse revolution. But coming back to what Louisa has said, and I'm sure what the other panelists will say in the coming presentations, this is not a silver bullet, but it's definitely one part and foundation and pillar to challenge not just climate change, but your own net zero targets. So how do we do that? Well, we have two areas. We have the refill model, which is a refill station that can be based in a store, but it could be based in a university or a train station. It can be a standalone, and also this can be a return point. What this does is it starts to drive consumer acquisition, but it gets people to fall back in love with the reuse model. And then we have the pre-fill model. And the pre-fill model is basically replacing on a shelf or in a warehouse reusable packaging that's of the same size as single-use packaging. That means that you can have an extensive product range, and it also gives consumers the convenience of grab and go. We also have the data that reusable packaging and the materials that we use, stainless steel, aluminium and glass, have a lower carbon output through reuse of once through to 3 times for aluminium. And here's a little video that I'm just going to play, hopefully it'll work, which will bring the refill station to life.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah. We chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there, can still recall time we cried, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side.
So as you can see, Beauty Kitchen wasn't in that refill station. Our second customer to our reusable packaging is Unilever, which is the 3rd biggest personal care company in the world and one of the biggest food companies as well. And in the personal care industry alone, there is billions of pieces of single-use packaging used every single year. And in our bathroom, we are less likely to recycle than anywhere else in the house. So this is why we wanted to give a different option with different materials. But how does this work make a difference to our overall industry? And that's one of the keys here to the circular economy, is how do we scale it? How do we make sure that everyone has access to it? Because scale has always been the challenge for the circular economy. Well, the way that we do it is that we have designed our products with circularity in mind by using cradle to cradle. We, as I said before, are a B Corp certified business, and we want not just Beauty Kitchen, we want other brands and retailers to imagine a world where they set a new standard. Yeah, and doing that means that you have to be open and transparent with sharing your sustainable advantage with others. The way that we've done that is through our reusable packaging program that other brands can access and retailers can access. We've had to set up the infrastructure to support that. And I can go into that in more detail if anyone has any questions. But we've made that into a commercial opportunity. So we then sell and lease the packaging and refill stations to brands and retailers, which means that our commercials stack up. But it also means that we are being open source with the challenges that we've overcome. So that's really my, hopefully 10 minutes, I think, and I'll pass back to David.
Thanks very much, Jo. That was an excellent presentation, great insight into what your business is doing just now. We'll keep going just now, though. We'll move on to Kelly Wright from the Refillery. Kelly, with the Refillery, they have a zero waste shop, and she'll hopefully be standing by ready to share that experience with us.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Slick.
That's come through okay, you're good to go.
Excellent. So I just wanted to start with a little bit of background on the Refillery and how this came to be. My background is in food manufacturing. So I worked for a good part of 20 years working with different UK supermarkets, latterly Waitrose. And within those roles, I was heavily involved in trying to reduce plastic packaging. In reality, that was mainly around reducing cost of product rather than for environmental reasons. But the more I learned about it, the more it didn't sit right with me what we were doing. You know, we were developing products sometimes in necessary plastic, a lot of the times in needless plastic, and a lot of the times the plastic was there to make production easier. So it wasn't easier for the customer, it was easier to produce the product. So I decided that I would quit my job and start the Refillery. And the idea behind it was to really give customers a choice. At the time, there wasn't a choice to shop plastic free. So I wanted to create a shop and an environment where it was easy to make that decision to shop plastic free. And I also knew that once this movement took hold, the major retailers would then start looking at these sorts of models, which is what's happened. And we think at the moment, and nobody knows for sure because there are a lot of independents out there, but there are about 500 zero waste shops throughout the UK. There is definitely a market for this, people want it, and it continues to grow. So I'm just going to give you a bit of context to why we should all start to reuse. So in the UK, we generate over 2.4 million tonnes of plastic per year. Only 46% is recovered and recycled. So when I say recovered and recycled, that means it gets recycled, but it's also recovered and it's sent to incineration. You know, so that's a lot that's going to landfill. That's still a lot that's not being recovered and dealt with. 25% of all that plastic produced is for food packaging. So not surprisingly, 880,000 tonnes of plastic waste is generated by UK supermarkets each year. And that was a stat that I put on a slide 3 years ago, and it hasn't changed despite all of the pledges from UK supermarkets. And it's clear now, we all know, we cannot recycle our way out of this problem. Even Boris knows that now. Climate change and plastic pollution are not separate issues either. Plastic creates greenhouse gases throughout its life cycle, and our consumption of it is undoubtedly adding to the climate crisis. We need to change our relationship with plastic, particularly single use. So the Refillery exists to provide an alternative to plastic-riddled supermarkets and to really give the consumer the power back to make the change for themselves. And what we're trying to create here is a more conscious consumer. So we're saying to our customers, you need to rethink how you buy things. You need to rethink what you buy, why you're buying it. Do you need it? Are you over consuming? And to reorganize as well. We're all kind of used to taking our coffee cups, our water bottles out with us. Refilling does take a little bit of reorganization, but you know, once you get used to doing it, it becomes normalized. And then refill where you can. It's so important to use what we've got, to use the resources that we've got and continue to use them. So our system is really simple. Our system is, if you want to put it into your context, is refill on the go. So customers come to our shop and we provide them with as many products as we possibly can that can be refilled by themselves. So you can bring anything into the shop. You can bring your own container. You can bring plastic. We're not plastic haters. A buzzer doesn't go off at the door or anything. You can bring an old sock. We really don't care what you bring to fill in as long as you're refilling. So you weigh your container, you get a barcode which gives you the weight of your container, you then fill it with lovely products, you then reweigh it and get a barcode to take to the till. It's really simple. And the types of things that we're selling to help people reduce their plastic consumption. So we have a wide range of organic fruit and vegetables. Organic is a big thing for us as well, because as an environmentally friendly shop, that's important to push that forward. A big range of whole foods, locally produced food. We support a lot of local producers. Everyday groceries without plastic, so tin cans without BPA, lots of things in glass that can be returned, household detergents, personal care. I'm proud to say we stock the beauty kitchen range and we use the returnable scheme, and minimal waste lifestyle products as well. And within our supply chains, we've really helped to create more circular supply routes. So we started off with our coffee supplier. So our coffee supplier is in Kinross. He comes with a tin full of coffee beans. He pours it straight into our dispenser and he takes that tin away. There is no packaging within that process. We use Moscow milk. So it's, you know, everybody has seen a glass milk bottle. It's you know, the traditional circular model. We don't yet have a milk machine, but that's coming later. And we also work with some other smaller producers that are giving us their products. Normally they would supply in plastic, they're doing it in glass for us, and then the glass is returned by the customer. They pay a deposit and then they get their deposit back when they return it. And we have some beauty products as well where we do the same. But there are some challenges with circular systems, as was pointed out earlier. One of the biggest things, I guess, is health and safety. In a refill shop, you are dealing with a lot of bulk products. So, you know, lots of sacks that weigh 20 kilos, lots of big dispensers that have to be managed. So, you know, manual handling is a big thing. You know, we need to make sure that all our staff and our customers are safe when we're refilling things. So there, you know, it can be complex. Equipment cleaning and maintenance, this is really important for us. It's not as easy as it seems. They're very cumbersome, some of these dispensers. They have to be taken apart and cleaned and dried properly and put back together again. The use of bulk chemicals, we have a lot of spillages from refilling, so we need to be mindful that our customers are safe and there's no slippages, and perceived hygiene risks as well with refilling. More prominent during COVID, but you know, with extra things in place, customers can be made to feel safe in that environment. Food quality and safety. So allergen control is a big issue for us. Clearly, with our model of refilling, allergens are airborne. It's very difficult to manage that, but we try to manage it as best we can. Increased risk of foreign bodies. It's worth considering what type of dispensers that you use. We use gravity dispensers. They're all sealed, so it's very difficult for foreign bodies to get in. And increased risk of contamination as well, whether that is accidental or deliberate. So where we can, we try again and use the gravity dispensers rather than the scoop bins. And the same reason for stock rotation. Gravity bins, basically what goes in first comes out first. So we know that that stock is rotating. You haven't got something sat at the bottom of a scoop bin for weeks and weeks. But unfortunately, at the moment, it is more expensive in lots of cases to shop refilling and to shop loose. It's still cheaper to throw away rather than reuse. You know, we've got the cost of cleaning things, we've got the cost of sending the packaging back. So it is still cheaper for the customer just to pop that in the bin. Loose is not cheaper than packaged either. This confuses customers a lot. You know, why am I paying more for a product when I haven't got the packaging? I'm bringing my own packaging in. And the biggest reason for that is because packaged goods are produced en masse. So they're produced all day long down big production lines. They're very efficient and they can afford to do that. At the moment, we can't because we need scale to be able to bring those prices down. And storage, packaging and transport as well. So we do have a lot of reuse systems. We have to store all those customer returns. We have to get them back to our suppliers. And we have to find a way to do that as efficiently and as carbon efficiently as possible. And perceived ease of use, it needs to be really easy to do this. And we feel we've come up with a format that, you know, is easy. People do come back, which is good. There is more interaction than with packaged goods, but to be honest, you know, it's more fun than going into a supermarket and picking a package off a shelf. It's more interactive. It's making people more connected with their food. And there is the hassle factor of returning packaging as well. But, you know, I think if you're bold enough to come into a refill store and start shopping in this way, then the next stage is returning your packaging. And, you know, that hassle factor soon diminishes once you get used to doing it. And paying by weight is sometimes a barrier for people. It's very difficult to understand how much something is going to cost if you're refilling it yourself. So it's really important to make it clear, you know, how much that weight is going to cost. We call it till shock, and we normally get it with nuts, whereby the customer comes to the till and they're very shocked at how much, you know, half a kilo of nuts cost. So it's really important to make that clear to customers. So where are we now? So we're 3 years into the Refillery. We opened our first shop 3 years ago. We now have a second shop in Edinburgh, and we're about to open our third shop next week. We have 8 employees, we have 70 different suppliers, 1,300 products, over 1,000 customers a week, and we've saved so far 500,000 pieces of plastic. So for a small independent in Edinburgh, that's quite significant. We haven't done that. How customers have done that, they've saved that plastic. So the future that we see is a normalization of refill shopping, whichever model you decide is right for you, whether you get your refills delivered at home or you visit a shop. But refilling should become very normalized, and we can see that it's starting to be taken on board by mainstream businesses and supermarkets. We've also launched the Refillery franchise. So this is our way of scaling our business and doing it quickly. We need to scale because we need the economies of scale to make things cheaper. We also need to scale because we need to have a bigger voice within the supply chain as well to make those changes that we need to make. And also we wanted to give other people the opportunity to own a store like the Refillery. It's great fun, it's a great environment, and it's giving back to your local communities. And then the next thing is next week we're launching our concept store in Waverley Market in Edinburgh, and we'll also have Edinburgh's first, as we think it's Edinburgh's first, circular coffee bar and deli. And had I known about yo-yo cups before, I would definitely be using them, but unfortunately I didn't. So this is what we are launching next week. So we will have, as well as the normal Refillery, we're having meal solution kits. So commuters and people that are working in the city can pop by and just grab a bag, and they've got a meal solution in a bag without any plastic. We're going to have a deli with sandwiches all locally made and without plastic, and encouraging people to bring in their containers to reuse. And we also have cold drinks dispensers. So we'll have kombucha and we'll have sparkling water as well on tap, so people can come in with their own bottles and refill their bottles straight from our taps. And then our newest thing is our reusable and returnable cups for our coffee bar. So our coffee bar will be unique in the fact that we will have no single-use coffee cups in it. And we wanted to tackle this problem because it's a massive problem. We consume 3 billion coffee cups in the UK every year, and only 2% of those are recycled. That's a massive amount, and we wanted to do something to change that. Clearly, with our location, we have lots of visitors, lots of commuters, so we're in a really good position to really make an impact on how much single-use coffee cups are used within that area. So we're using Circular & Co, we're using their Now Cup, and you will pay a deposit and then get the deposit back when you return the cup. We're also using Reath, which you'll hear from later, and we're going to stick all of these cups with their QR code so that we can track and track the carbon savings of each of these cups as well. So that's it from the Refillery. Look forward to your questions later.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to our reusable packaging webinar. I hope we're all refreshed and ready to go for the second half of our session. Next up we have got Phil Housley from EcoEats talking about their takeaway delivery service. Philip, are you all set to go?
We're ready to go. Can you see my screen okay, David?
I can see it fine. That looks good.
Fantastic, perfect. So good afternoon, everybody. Really excited to be here and be able to take part in this webinar. So My name's Philip Housley, so I'm co-founder and CEO of EcoEats. EcoEats is a circular economy takeaway platform. So in terms of how we got started, we began in St Andrews in 2020 as a zero emissions delivery service, working with local restaurants to provide the technology and logistics to get their food to hungry customers without any delivery emissions. Then sort of earlier on in this year, it was really highlighted to us by our fantastic angel investor, Julia Davies, that a circular economy takeaway solution is really, really needed. The tremendous amounts of plastic waste and other types of waste that are being thrown away by hungry people each year is truly astounding. And so we developed a reusable packaging solution for our restaurant partners and customers. So we, as I say, we got started in St Andrews, and we are now operating also in central Glasgow and in central Dundee as well. And to date, we've had about 1.3 million in restaurant sales through the EcoEats app, which effectively functions like any other takeaway marketplace app, except you have the ability in St Andrews to be able to order for your takeaway to be ordered in reusables, which are then returned, so eliminating all of that single-use plastic waste. And of course, all of our deliveries are via zero emissions, which none of the other major delivery apps offer at present. So our delivery cyclists, they've cycled the equivalent of 2 times the circumference of the globe, delivering foods to hungry customers on behalf of our fantastic restaurant partners. And this is, of course, a massive market. People still want convenience, and we have to figure out a way to mesh sustainability and convenience together, and we really think that we can do that. So in terms of the sort of issue, so 70% of young people are anxious about the state of the climate. However, of course, they still want the experiences they know and love, you know, those delicious food experiences with friends or by themselves, you know, on a night when they don't fancy cooking. They want to have these experiences, but they don't want it to have a negative impact on the planet. So what we effectively offer is guilt-free takeaway, a way to consume takeaway and feel good about it. So the problem is massive in terms of we're talking about 10 billion single-use packaging items thrown away by hungry folk every single year, and that's just in the United Kingdom. And so 82% of plastic packaging items that are thrown away in the UK are either incinerated, exported, or end up in landfill. So that brings me on to the sort of the next point, which is, what about recycling? Is recycling not the answer? And our view is very simple, that reuse is the priority. Reuse comes first, and recycling absolutely has a place, but as a last resort where reuse is not able to function. So just as a sort of demonstrable example of why reuse is better than recycling. So when a container is recycled, there are emissions associated with the dismantlement and the remanufacturing of the new containers. And with reuse, you eliminate that. You have effectively we have a very local model whereby we're picking up the reusable containers from addresses in St Andrews. We're then getting them washed in St Andrews, and then we're shipping them straight back out to restaurants in St Andrews. And so the transportation emissions, because it's all done by EcoEats, are zero emissions anyway. But we're effectively trying to eliminate all of those places in the chain where negative carbon impact on the planet can occur. And you just have to look at the actions of regulatory bodies around the world to realize that governments want businesses to move in the reusables direction. So if you look at the UK, they are introducing, as Louisa mentioned, a single-use plastic packaging tax from next year, I believe. I believe in Germany, they are seeking to make sure that all takeaway outlets are offering at least one reusables solution. And we fully anticipate that the government here will also look into similar ways of encouraging consumers and businesses to really get on board the reusables revolution. Because I think it really is the future, and I think listening to Boris a few days ago, he very clearly stated that from what he's seen and the data that he gets at number 10, recycling on its own is unfortunately not the answer. So we don't want to discourage anyone from recycling. Clearly, we just take the mantra that reuse first and then recycle as a last resort. So just to sort of demonstrate our solution to you here, so just in terms of what you can imagine the experience would be. So you're in St Andrews and you're feeling hungry, you don't feel like cooking tonight. You can browse through a wonderful selection of restaurant partners that have joined up with EcoEats to be able to offer you sustainable takeaway. So you browse through, you add the items to your basket. And then once you've done that, you turn on the reusables option, and then your takeaway is delivered to your door in our reusable containers. So our reusable containers, so every single piece of single-use packaging saved, we've calculated that the net impact of that is that it saves 300 grams of CO2 emissions and 10 liters of water. So we can really, this is not something that is an excessive burden onto the consumer. This is a way for the consumer to still enjoy, fantastic experiences, but being able to have that in a guilt-free capacity, I think is something that our customers find really, really valuable. So from the restaurant perspective, this is the customer perspective, and I'll sort of go through that first, actually. So just in case my explanation wasn't completely clear, and to touch on the latter points here, you order through the app, you receive your takeaway and reusable containers. We then collect those containers from your doorstep, and then we will wash those containers and ship them back out to our restaurant partners. So from the perspective of our restaurant partners, we effectively slot in a very similar way to their existing packaging solution. So restaurants, they have lots of things to think about, and we don't want to add additional complexity to their focus of delivering fantastic food and drink. So that's why we at EcoEats handle all of the logistics associated with washing and delivery. And it's also why we've basically made our model analogous to the model that they're used to, which is paying up to 30 pence per packaging unit to a packaging supplier and having those shipped to their restaurant. So we charge per use of a single use of one of our reusable containers. And so it's effectively a very similar set up for our restaurant partners, and doesn't cost them anything extra, but gives them a lot in terms of being able to improve the sustainability of their business. So in terms of our containers, I've got one just for you here. So these reusables can be used up to 1,000 times. They're made of polypropylene, and so they're fully recyclable. And we have a setup whereby once our reusable containers are no longer in adequate condition, which is likely to happen after 1,000 uses, we then send them to a company in the United Kingdom that utilizes the food grade plastic they are made of to turn them back into new reusable takeaway containers. So even once these containers, have been used a significant number of times in a circular fashion, we can still get that material back into the circular economy and try to really minimize the amount of waste. So we started initially with, and we still work on the basis of, we will always pick up the reusables from the doorstep of the customer. However, we're also at the advanced stage now of trying to introduce our first drop box as well, enabling customers to go out for a walk and return the containers themselves to a convenient EcoEats non-bin, as we like to term them. We like to make clear that they are not bins for any older generic items, just for EcoEats reusables. And we do all of the tracking using QR codes, which we attach to the reusable containers, and that enables us to track the carbon impact, the environmental impact that is occurring, and making sure that customers are in fact returning the reusable containers is really important. So we think tracking is a really important part of the solution. It means we can provide data to our merchant partners in terms of the impact that they are actually having. And I think that's that's really important. And I agree with the points raised before in terms of it's really important for businesses in the circular economy to be as open and transparent as possible regarding the amount of use of the reusable containers and the life cycle analysis, etc. So we've calculated that our reusables have to be used 15 times in order to net equivalize and start having a positive impact on the environment. And with the return rates of around 91% that we're seeing, we're really confident that we can have a really great positive impact on the environment. So moving on from there, I hope that's given you a sort of good overview of what we do and how we do it. In terms of the sort of practicalities, we had our health and safety policy, drawn up by a health and safety professional at University College London, and so for the time being, we're really focused on making this model, refining the model at a lower volume scale. But from discussions we've had with packaging suppliers peoples that specialize in washing secondary packaging in the industry, we understand that what could be the most efficient model is to have reusables washed at scale using automation, and that could get the cost of reusables down to a level where it's actually much more efficient than using single-use plastic or any other single-use items. So there are a number of companies that claim to offer, for example, compostable takeaway packaging, and the problem with that is it's nearly always only compostable in certain conditions that consumers don't actually end up throwing that packaging into. If you are receiving a takeaway to your home, it's very unlikely that you're going to go out of your way to then find the appropriate bin such that this piece of compostable packaging will actually be able to decompose. So we think it's really important to be really transparent with customers and all of our stakeholders to make sure that what we're doing is the right thing to do for the environment. So thank you very much for listening. If anyone has any further questions, I'm obviously going to be on the panel at the end. If you want to send me an email, my details are there. And if you'd like to sort of join our journey and get email updates on sort of our progress. So like I say, we're just about to introduce our Reusables program to Central Glasgow as well. We have it active in St Andrews. And we're really passionate about scaling what we do to other locations across the UK and beyond possibly. So we'd love to keep you up to date on that and how things are developing.
Thanks, Philip. Really interesting presentation again, and I'm starting to feel a few hunger pangs just thinking about the takeaway options that could come in reusable packaging. So thanks very much for that. We are running a little bit behind where we thought we would be, but I just wanted to reassure our next two speakers that we will make sure you get the full period of time you need to do your presentations, even if we eat into the Q&A a little bit. We think it's really worthwhile for you to be able to share your presentations fully. So next up we have Clemens Avignon from RePack. So if you're ready, Clemens, just begin.
Yes, I think you can all see my screen now. So hi, thank you a lot for the opportunity to present RePack here today. So I will walk you through our reusable packaging service for e-commerce. Yes. So actually, even if we are for e-commerce, it all started with a bottle deposit system. Back in the 50s in Finland, where we are from, there have been the Summer Olympic Games in the 50s. And it was also the arrival of Coca-Cola and its bottles to Finland for the first time. And right away, Finland decided to have a bottle deposit system then. So actually, then the RePack founders developed the service when they bumped into challenges in some existing business model. And in 2011, so 60 years after the first deposit system in Finland, our chief designer was working on a project with the Finnish post office, and they spent a lot of time in the warehouses and seeing the rise of e-commerce at the time, and all of the single-use packaging being delivered only to be used once and thrown away. We came up with the idea to apply this Finnish bottle deposit system in a way to e-commerce packaging. So that was like 10 years ago, when sustainable packaging and plastic reduction were still secondary topics on the global agenda. But we do still think that the comparison between returnable bottles and our returnable packaging is valid. And just so you know, the return rate of empty bottles and cans in Finland is around 95%. And we would really like to do the same and to see the same happening in e-commerce packaging worldwide. So you can see that our first design at the time were cardboard boxes that could be folded flat for return, but it was not durable and scalable enough. So we went back to the drawing board. And we came up with an idea that's actually very simple. It's a plastic pouch that could be scaled to match whatever size of product is in it, and can be folded simply into letter size for returns, and and can last at least 30 uses or more. So that design proved to work so well that now, 10 years later, it's pretty much still the same. The packaging itself is made of durable, recycled polypropylene, and also entirely recyclable. It comes in 3 different sizes, innovatively called S, M, and L. So the S size, to give you an idea, is like perfect for a t-shirt or a pair of jeans. The M size is better for like larger items, or like a few items like a skiing jacket, a shoebox, or something like that. And the bigger size can actually pile up quite a lot already. So 2 shoebox with a full skiing outfit or something like that. At the moment, we work mostly with fashion, but we are thinking a lot of developing other kind of packaging solutions as well, because in many of the web stores we actually work with, they also have a wider selection of products, so fashion, but also fragile stuff like electronics. So we want to be able to answer to all of their packaging needs. What makes our reuse scheme work worldwide is that all of the repack that we have, they can be folded flat and returned in a mailbox anywhere in the world, and it's always free for the end user because it's always prepaid. And there is one more thing. Every single repack has a unique ID, which means that each repack can be tracked. Essentially, this means that it's possible for us to know whether a repack has been returned or not. And when a repack is returned, the end user can be given a reward for that return. So it can be a discount on the next purchase as the same store or at another store on our platform. It can also be a charity donation or whatever the web store actually wished first. So to give you an idea, RePack is already available at more than 200 brands in EU and the US. We started in the EU, so it's still our biggest market, but we can see that the demand is also picking up in the US. And beside brands, the users that have actually come to touch and fill the repack have been very, very enthusiastic about it. We have an amazing user feedback. They like the unpacking experience. They think it's better than the usual single-use packaging that they receive. They definitely see the environmental advantage of it. They think it's actually easy to use, and they really like how effortless it is to just pop it in the mailbox anywhere on their way to work or to wherever. It's super light. It fits in a bag very easily. So, but of course, it's not just about how the brands and the user feel. It's about the true impact of reuse. So I'm just going to walk you through the impacts. RePack does win against the cardboard box, both in CO2 and the amount of trash after its second use already. So that's a comparison between a classic cardboard box and a repack, and we're gonna go like through the result after repack being used 20 times. So of course, for these 20 deliveries, 20 cardboard boxes would be needed, but only one repack. So to give you an idea, manufacturing a single card box produces about 200 grams of CO2. So, and producing a new repack and returning it is more around 250. But already after the second use, the situation is already different. So another cardboard would need to be made. So it's again 200 grams of CO2. When the return of the repack through the mail is only 36 grams, which is the equivalent of a single letter. So as you can imagine, the benefits is bigger and bigger and bigger with every round. So at the end, actually after 20 rounds, repack has saved up to 80% of CO2 and even more in actual trash. So the benefits is pretty clear and only after the second use. So it's a big win. So now I would like to show you how do we actually answer nowadays as many e-commerce packaging needs as possible. So this is like our first service. So it's like really ideal for online stores that sell like goods online and that really wish to reduce the environmental impact of their e-commerce shipping. So how it works for them is very simple. The web shop is just going to order packaging on our site as they would order any normal single-use packaging and then send their products in repack as usual. The difference is that the consumer is going to drop the empty repack, so into any post box, and we will take care of all the reverse logistics. We will clean them, collect them, and then the new shops just have to order again on our website. That's as simple as that. So to show you like a concrete case, I thought I could show you Manitober. So Manitober is a German brand that we've been working with, and they use our integration on their Shopify store because we also help brand to display a repack properly on the site so their consumer understand it and can select it. So they came to us with the very usual challenge, how to make sure that their sustainable brand would have a packaging that really reflects their sustainability mindset, really. And with the results, they've been pretty happy. So they reported that integrating RePack on their Shopify store was very, very easy. And actually they noticed that 40% of their customers were open to choose RePack option, even though they had to pay €3 for it. So that's also how reusable packaging is easy to implement. It's because the brand on itself doesn't have to pay to bear the cost of the reusable packaging. It's actually the customers that pay for RePack, and they're of course more willing to pay for RePack because they know that they're going to also get a reward for choosing it. So it's kind of a win-win-win for the brand, the customer, and the environment in the end. But there is also another way to implement RePack in a business that we designed recently for more circular businesses. So what I mean is more like models where actually reusable packaging is needed for its purpose of being reusable. So if you rent clothes online, or if you have a refill business, or you want to exchange samples inside your company, we have that services as well. So how it works is very easy. Businesses are going to rent our packaging for a monthly fee, and then just use the packaging very easily, like just in their operation. So to just exchange the parcels back and forth. And we are very present to help the brand to use the RePack perfectly. We make sure that they never run out of bags. So if a bag is damaged or too dirty to be reused, we take them back and we clean them and we send them again at no extra fee. So for example, a use case of this is something that companies don't necessarily think about when they want to integrate reusable packaging to their e-commerce. Is like, it doesn't have to be the B2C packaging. It can also be for any kind of internal packaging needs. So that's what one of our oldest customer, Gani, decided to do. So they already were using RePack for their e-commerce shipment to consumers and for their rentals, but they decided to start using it as well for all the internal samples that are going back and forth between the office and between the warehouse and again. And so with their very ambitious goal of having 100% of their packaging to be either recyclable but mostly reusable, that really helped them to tackle this single-use packaging problem from the inside, and it really supports internally the mindset of changing for more sustainability. So we really recommend brands to kind of find these obvious return journeys that already exist within a company and tap them with reusable packaging. Yes, so that was what we do at RePack. I hope I stayed in time, but yes, that's it. Feel free to contact us, clemence@repack.com, or to go on the website. You can see more case studies and more use cases of how can RePack be implemented for e-commerce. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Clemence. That was really interesting and a great example of quite a change, a systematic change to how we package products. So I hope everyone found that very interesting as well. Our final speaker is Claire Rampin from Reath, talking about data and tracking. Claire, are you ready to go? Excellent.
Yes, ready to go. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, I can see and hear you. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. I'm Claire, co-founder of Reath. We're an Edinburgh-based startup, and we focus on enabling brands to reach their packaging targets through reuse. So I don't think I need to say to this audience, but we all know that our linear system is really broken, and we're seeing still over 50% of virgin plastic is actually going into single-use packaging production, which is a really depressing statistic. And some of the other speakers have shared some other ones in terms of the volume of packaging that's still being produced. And so my co-founder and I set out to understand back in 2019 what was stopping businesses from shifting to reusables. We went and we spoke to over about 100 businesses, and we did some knocking on the doors of manufacturing facilities to understand and speak to the people that ran those businesses and really understand what was what were the barriers to them operating reuse at scale. And the first one that came up was safety and legislation compliance. So understandably, people want to keep their customers very safe and make sure that they're not digressing from the law in any way. And there's some very specific legislation around packaging, and specifically that you need to have a batch code stamped on it and know exactly what product had been in there and what batch, in order to do a product recall in case something goes wrong with that batch. And so many companies were saying to us, well, we can't, our current traceability system relies on us stamping these batch codes with ink onto our packaging. So if we don't do that anymore, or if we do it in a way that can come off, then we lose that traceability. And the second thing that also came up was around the environmental reporting. So at the moment, you pay based on the weight of packaging you put into the market as a brand. And that means that you're actually incentivized to make less durable packaging that's less likely to be reused because you're paying based on weight. And so we got this feedback and realized that there needed to be a way to account for reusables and make sure that these businesses weren't having to pay more for doing something that was essentially the right thing. One of the third challenges that came up, understandably, was operational challenges. So the reverse logistics, implementing those kinds of systems can be challenging, particularly if you don't have a handle on where your reusable assets are in the system. And actually on to the next 2 points that were basically subsections of that, which was reuse was very new. People didn't really understand or know how to design the best bottle, piece of packaging, cup, etc., to be reused X number of times. And they didn't know how many times it was likely to be reused either. And in terms of predictability, and certainly until COVID happened, supply chains for linear economy businesses really felt quite predictable. You could order something and expect it to turn up. And so the idea of embracing a circular economy where you don't necessarily have that predictability was kind of nerve-wracking. So we launched a system, there we go. We decided to design a system to try and tackle all of these challenges, which leans heavily on the idea of a digital passport. So that's where you give a digital passport to every physical item. So you have a digital version of that physical item, and you know a lot of the information about it. So I'll take you on in a second to show you how that works. But one thing to mention is that we work across all the reuse models. So all the ones that Louisa mentioned, we were designed to be very flexible across all of those systems. So the way it works is we take any piece of reusable packaging or whatever reusable item our client wants to reuse, and it just has to be tracked with a unique machine readable code. So that can be a QR code, it can be an RFID, but it could be, there's some really interesting technologies out there that actually go all the way into embedding quantum resin into different pieces of packaging so you can give it a unique ID. And once we've done that, we create its digital twin version in our system. So what is a digital twin? That's essentially information about your reusable asset. So what it's made of, the percentage of recycled material in it, perhaps where that recycled material came from. And then we match that with the products that are going to go into that reusable asset. And when it then goes through its life cycle and is used out in the world, you're able to get a time-stamped record, a digital ledger essentially of everything that's happened to it and everything it's come into contact with within that system. You can also capture other types of steps there, whether they range from cleaning or when you have someone come like QAing the packaging and making sure it's up to strict standard. So the company sets up scanning points and scans that packaging through the key stages in their process. And the exciting part is really when you've gathered all that data, you're then able to start using it for some pretty exciting things. So you can start to optimize your processes, understand more about how your packaging is being used, feed those insights back into the design process and make sure you're designing a fit for purpose piece of packaging. And so we work with companies, skipped ahead. We work with companies who operate these reuse systems, and our system is designed to be that digital infrastructure layer. So it's very flexible depending on what system they have. Our largest client is Marks and Spencer's, and I'll take you through a quick case study of what we do with them. So you may or may not be aware they've launched Fill Your Own in selected stores across the UK. And one of the reason that we were selected as their technology partner was to help them digitalize that process on the back end and make sure that they had a full traceability of everything that was going into those pieces of packaging, those big bulk containers, and be able to have that oversight and begin to understand more about how this system was operating. So whenever a store colleague fills a big bulk container, they'll just scan the QR code and select from the drop down what products have gone into that. Any other key information is captured, and then the team at Marks and Spencer's is able to see that information in aggregate across all of their schemes. So that's really our focus, is helping companies achieve their material reduction targets, specifically through reuse. We help them identify where they could start reusing things and then implement that safely in a scalable way. One of the pieces of research that we did at early days was to look at what data actually needed to be collected in this kind of a scheme. And so we launched a piece of research funded by Innovate UK, working with the Open Data Institute and Lancaster University. And we created a global open data standard, which has now been adopted by Marks and Spencer's, one of our clients, but also many other organizations that are not our clients as well. And this was a piece of research where we spoke to people from like global FMCGs who are looking at reuse projects and wanted to think quite commercially about what kind of data they wanted to capture, through to health and safety and environmental regulators, literally the compliance officers that go into the manufacturing environments and want to understand, as Louisa mentioned, what you're doing to make sure that your reusable packaging is safe. And so from that research, we were able to distill 37 data fields that are really critical for that compliance reporting. And we integrated that into our software so our clients can run those reports very easily. And we just had our research published actually in the Journal of Cleaner Production, co-authored with Lancaster and University of St Andrews as well. So last thing to say is just, and I think many of the other speakers have touched on this, but reuse has enormous opportunities and benefits, particularly at a systemic level. And we like to think beyond just carbon. Our system can help you calculate your carbon footprint of your packaging and understand when you're going to break even. But we also like to look at more holistically at things like water and waste as well, and the volume of that. We're a very small team at the moment, based in Edinburgh, and have had some fantastic partners along the way. The most recent one is actually based in Hawaii, so I get to spend a lot of time up at night on late calls, but it's really exciting to see reuse being embraced across the world. So thank you very much for your time, appreciate it, and I'll pause there. We'd love to hear from you if reusable packaging is a focus for your business.
Thank you very much, Claire. Another very, very good presentation, really interesting stuff in there. And just before we get into the question and answers, we have got quite a few questions just to go through from in the chat forum. If anybody else has questions that haven't put in there yet, please do so just now and we'll work our way through them. And I also just want to thank each of our panelists today just for the time you've taken to put those presentations together and for delivering them in such an effective way. So thank you all. The first question that I wanted to put to the panel is was asked by Priyanka. It was aimed towards Joe, but I think you all have a view on it really. And it was around the acceptability of consumers and businesses to the solutions to reuse that you're proposing. So I suppose, Joe, do you want to go first with an answer to that question? And then if anyone else wants to add something, just take yourself off mute and give us your perspective as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So what we've found through the data that's been collected, which has been collected through Kantar, which is a big data collecting agency, when we launched the refill station and pre-fill model into 6 Asda stores. But we did that with Unilever products, and Unilever are, as I've said before, a really huge organisation, and 98% of people would use the refill station again. 88% of people switch brands. So we had a laundry detergent in one of the refill stations, which was Persil Non-Bio, which is the lowest selling SKU for Unilever within laundry. And it was outselling the plastic equivalent that was available on the shelf, as in for normal purchase. So what that proved was that customers were coming in and switching from other brands to Persil non-bio because they could get it in a reusable packaging. So as we scale this model up in terms of with more brands, so yesterday we launched with Elemis, which is a high-end premium spa brand in our reusable packaging. And as we continue to gain more brands, that gives more choice, which will attract a different demographic. So if you think of Unilever, you're talking like a £2 Radox. Beauty Kitchen is like an £8 organic version of a body wash, and then you've got Elemis at like 40 quid. So you've got different price points, but we need more choice and more accessibility. So we have launched in Asda, we've launched in Co-op, and we are currently working in partnership with Loop, which has launched in the Tesco stores. So the majority of packaging that the Loop brands are using has come from Return, Refill, Repeat. So, you know, I don't think there is enough data that anybody can state at the moment to give reliable and valid results, but there's very good indications on how easy it seems to be for people to transfer onto reuse. However, I do have data from Loop that was launched in Carrefour across France, and that data has been gathered over an 18-month period because they launched in France a lot earlier than they did in the UK, and they're currently getting 83% return rates, which is much higher than what Loop even forecast. And probably anybody on here, however much we love reuse, we would never have probably come up with such a high figure.
That sounds really promising, Jo. Thank you for that. Does anyone want to add to the answer? Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, I can say from, I mean, I love a bit of Kantar data, don't get me wrong, Joanne. But, you know, and that's looking at sort of mass market. But my perspective is obviously, you know, in reality, what's happening in a refill store, and do people come back? And they absolutely do. You know, we have 1,000 customers a week now, and many of those are regular customers now. And every week we get new people in. You know, at first they're intimidated by it, but they soon get used to it. So people are getting used to this refill concept, and they are seeking it out for sure.
Thank you very much. Priyanka also asked about the challenge of scaling the opportunity for reuse, and I think, you know, some of the work that we're talking about is maybe in its early-ish stages, some a bit further on than others. But do we have a view of what are the obvious challenges for scaling up this and making it more mainstream?
Well, I think the main one really is if everybody starts doing individual reuse models. So it's the old Life of Brian splinter groups. Do you know what I mean? It's really about us coming together, and that's why we've worked in partnership with Loop, Jean Boutet, Algramo, who are, you know, established within reuse. And although we are competing in a similar space, there's enough, you know, business for everyone to go around. And I think that's what we need to be really careful of, that we don't create lots of independent brands, and we, you know, to ensure scale. We are all independents, and it's not that I don't want to encourage innovation, but there's a balance here between when innovation gets in the way of scalability.
Claire, were you going to say, or Louisa, you've jumped into my screen. I'm not sure if that means you're wanting to contribute, or...
Claire, you go first.
Sure. I was just going to say I think one of the critical things that came out of our research was there's so many different parts of this puzzle to be solved, and not one company can solve it all on their own. And it's really important to recognize that it needs to be an ecosystem. And so that was where we had come at it from, that we wanted to look at the digital infrastructure specifically, and we ideally wanted that to be from an open source perspective. But there's cleaning, there's transport, there's packaging, the actual packaging production itself. And I think the idea that one company could tackle this whole thing on their own is it's just too intimidating, and it's not really realistic. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges to scaling is lack of collaboration. But as Jo mentioned, I think in general people are quite receptive to that, and we're seeing a lot of collaboration in the space.
Yeah, I was going to say a very similar thing. So just to repeat what Claire and Joe have said. I think partnership working is absolutely key. We're not expecting every single producer or manufacturer or brand to develop their own logistics system, collection system, refilling and washing system. It's not practical, as Claire said. So partnership working is absolutely key, and I hope this presentation today has helped illustrate the types of partners that could offer services to build this into reusable packaging models. And I would encourage everyone to get in contact with Zero Waste Scotland if you need help in identifying potential partners, so that we can share some of these solutions with you.
We just about got there with your Wi-Fi connection there, Louisa. You were starting to go a little bit. And Clemens, it's been, you're talking about the business-to-business element of it. Do you see any differences in terms of the challenges there, in terms of scaling that up, and compared to the consumer side?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I was just saying, from your perspective of the business-to-business work that you're doing, do you see any different challenges there in making it more normal to go for a reusable packaging solution?
Well, for business to business, like the kind of closed loop environment that we offer is actually, it's super easy for brands to get into because they actually need this reusable packaging. They need the packaging to be sturdy enough to handle a few rounds. So it's just a very easy thing for them. The only problem that they used to have is like how to handle the cleaning by themselves, and how can they find even like a packaging that's designed for that. And that's where we come into, like, that we come to help. We kind of solve this challenge that they had. Okay, well, what do we do when a packaging comes back and it's too dirty, it's too sticky? Otherwise they would have just to throw it away, but now we take them back and we put them back into circulation. And so that's for our closed loop. And for the more standard, where the packaging actually ends up at the customer's house, like basically consumers like you and I ordering something online. And that's the same thing, like the brands don't have to worry about any of the reverse logistics. They don't have to see any of the returning package. So we take care of taking all of the packaging back and doing the cleaning and everything. And we give the brands their return rates. We share with them the customer feedback. So for the brands, it's as easy to use as any single-use packaging, really. So that has been very positive. Of course, the last challenge is the cost, because the cost is higher than single-use packaging. So that's why we offer this reward system. So in a way, the customers can get something back. It's not exactly a deposit, but they still get something back. So that seems to work. And as someone else was saying, the point, like really the key element is still cooperation, because the highest component of our cost is the postal return. That's still very expensive. But now we're really happy to see, for example, the French Post, they are cooperating with us to actually develop a new pricing just designed for returnable packaging. So it's great to see that, and we are constantly talking with them, and they're super willing to actually develop this solution, which is going to be probably a game changer in e-commerce if like the packaging can in the end become pretty competitive price-wise to actual cardboard. So great to see that these like super old players are really willing to actually change as well with us. So great.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting if the French postal system is going to get involved in reverse logistics. They're sort of the more general questions. We had a couple of specific questions. One for you, Kelly, around alcohol refills. And have you seen any demand for it? And are you aware of any options that you could provide consumers for that?
Yeah, we get asked about it all the time. At the moment, not. We're not saying never. Obviously, you need an alcohol license to do that, but it becomes a little bit more complex. I know Waitrose have done it really successfully. In fact, when they did their refill trial, that section, the wine and beer, was the most popular out of the whole trial, not surprisingly. So yeah, maybe eventually.
Yeah. I know the Zero Waste Scotland, we supported a project with the Isle of Arran Brewery to introduce growlers to allow people to buy the beer direct from the brewery in larger containers. But okay, there are a couple of questions, Philip, aimed at the washing of your reusable takeaway boxes, but I think you've answered those in the chat. I don't know if you want to quickly summarize that if you're still here.
Yeah. Yeah, so our washing process is very simple. So we effectively remove the detritus. We then rinse the containers, and then we place them in a industrial dishwasher. So they get washed at high temperature and pressure. It takes about 3 minutes. It's really quick if you've got one of those commercial dishwashers. The most difficult thing is the plastic takes quite a long time to dry, and so we have a large array of shelving racks where we're sort of lay all of these out in a relatively sort of condensed form, but such that the air can still get to the reusables, and that seems to do the trick. I think efficiency wise, if you were doing this at tens or hundreds of thousands of reusables per week, you could look at an automated model where you could potentially get the cost of washing the reusables down to sort of 2 pence or less, which would make things a lot more economical and potentially even more economical than single use.
That was actually one of the questions we were going to ask, was around the need for maybe a large scale washing facility for all this. If reusable packaging becomes more normal, could you see a situation where we have almost centralizing some of the washing of these containers?
Yeah, there is a company called Good Club that focuses on the grocery side, and they're partnered with a company in England called Packaging Services Europe, and what they do is they specialize in washing secondary packaging for companies like Ocado, I think it is. So the crates that go into supermarkets, they don't want to dispose of those, so they will send these rather large plastic crate style things to Packaging Services Europe to clean, and so that company is really going down the route of trying to develop reusables washing in a scalable way. They only have facilities in England, and so there's work to do in terms of working out is it feasible to ship reusables long distances. If it's via zero emissions delivery, then it can be fine, but or carbon neutral delivery, but you're never sure about you have to do a lot of research into the claims that are made by the various courier services. So it's from our calculations, it's just about viable in terms of doing it on a smaller scale if you can get the volumes to a high enough level. But if you really want to get it to be more economical than sort of vegware single-use packaging, you would have to consider some sort of automation.
Thanks, Philip. I'm conscious of our time, and we've still got a good number of our delegates on the call, which is great, but I want to close off relatively soon. The last question I was going to pose was, there are a couple of requests for advice about who to speak to about designing packaging for a system they're thinking about putting in. One was looking at reusable egg boxes, another one looking at containers for use of a food delivery system for elderly people. We were all looking at that ourselves and share what we find back with those people, but I wondered if anybody in the panel had any obvious people that would be worth for them recommending people to speak to.
I have a recommendation there, a company called Company, that's literally there. I can pop it in the chat. They are based in, I think it's a collective based in Madrid, but they've designed some really innovative reusable packaging, and yeah, they're a fantastic company.
And we'll please do put it in the chat so people can see it as an option. Okay. If there's nothing else, I don't have any other questions from the list. Is there anything any of the panel members want to just add as a final thought before we ice them up and close us off? Okay, well, thank you all very, very much for taking the time to take part in the webinar. I've certainly found it extremely informative, and I hope you all have too. As we said at the start, it will be on, we will post this onto our Circular Economy Accelerator website, which is just there, and that'll probably go up in the next week or so. We are running 2 more topic-specific events. The next one will be in January, and we're going to be talking about circular design on the 26th of January. So there'll be more information on that coming out soon. And just finally, just to highlight again that we are refreshed the Scottish Circular Economy Business Network, and we encourage you to join that if you're interested for more circular economy content. So that's the email address there. So thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time to join us, and we'll hopefully speak to you again soon. Thank you.